Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am. It is visible.
Okay,
You can start now.
okay. Thank you. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm presenting a talk on introduction to plate theory. So to begin with, see, this table shows a kind of survey of the type of structures those are available in practice. And these structures actually supports load under various conditions. And of course, it has to maintain the static equilibrium. So, I mean, depending on the functional requirement, what type of structural form that one has to choose, it depends on not only functional requirement, but there are many other significant factors such as the aesthetic requirement, the type of materials availability, then um, basically the foundation conditions, and also like the economic conditions. This shape of the structural form is based on that. So among these is the simplest one. You can see here the bars and the beams, of course, and these bars and beams, they are basically, you can see here the one dimension is much more larger as compared to the other dimensions. Of course, the simplest are the axially loaded members, which are designed to carry only the axial loads, and when the load is applied within the axis of the member. And in beams, you can see here the load which is applied in transverse direction, that is perpendicular to the axis of the beam, and basically it is designed primarily for taking the bendings, basically the bending load. Okay, and of course there are beam columns, so combination of axial and the transverse loading, that is subjected to bending. The curved version of the beam and the arch, of course, arches and curved beams are also supposed to take the bending as well as axial loads, and all of you must be aware of, being a civil engineer, I'm sure you already know these categories of the structures, but each of the structures are designed to carry the loads and to maintain the static equilibrium equations and the other factors. Now another type of structure is a frame structure, which are the assembly of the bar elements or beam elements or columns and so on. So when two components of the bar, they are attached with the pin, frictionless pin connection joints, and we call that structure as trusses. That, I mean, you know how to analyze trusses and all. And if the two members are rigidly connected with each other, and in addition to the axial load, like in trusses, individual members of the truss is supposed to carry only the axial loads, that is axial compression and tension. But in opposite to that, if the two members such as beam and column, they are connected with rigid joints, and if they are able to take along with axial loads, if they are able to take the bendings and moments, we call it frames. So most of you must have seen this kind of structure analysis and design of these structures at your undergraduate or maybe even post graduation level. But there are class of structures which are two dimensions. So you can see here the surface structure, which are two dimension, but two of the dimension as compared to other are significantly larger. And among these also there are categories. If they are carrying axial loads, we call it panels. All of you have seen the walls, building walls, they are carrying axial loads. And there are type of structure where two dimensions are larger, but they are designed to carry, they are analyzed and designed to carry the transverse loading, that is the bending, and we call it plate. So objective of this today's topic, I mean to cover the how these plates, what are these plate structures, how these structures are analyzed, and basically the theoretical development, because to comprehend the effect of the loading, it is very important to determine the accurate stresses, accurate deflections, and then only it is possible for us, for any engineer, structural engineer, to design this kind of structures. Okay, the last category, that is the shell structure. Of course, they are curved plates. So again, here also, as compared to one dimension, the other two dimensions are significantly larger. In shell also there are two categories. It can either take only the axial stresses, maybe the circumferential and the hoop stresses, axial stresses, and along with that, if the shells are designed for bending as well as axial. So these are the categories of various structural forms and a kind of survey. Now among plate there are three categories. So we will try to classify the plate also, but we limit ourselves here in today's talk is thin plate theory. Okay, so how the theoretical development that has happened in understanding the plates. So all basic things will be covered. Now imagine this cruise ship, it is under construction. It is located in the shipyard somewhere in Germany in 1915. So you may see here in this ship that there are so many components, such as these hull, bulkheads, deck of the ship, watertight compartments, then boards, jetties, windows and balconies, engine parts. Not only that, but there are number of parts which you can see in the entire shipyard, comprises of components of the plates which are subjected to various loading conditions, and also it is being supported with boundaries, various boundaries. Not only this, but there are many other practical problems which fall into the category of plate in bending. And civil engineering is not only the profession where this plate theory is being applied. There are many other areas such as aerospace engineering and mechanical engineering, where this kind of plate as one of your structural members are seen. So this picture and the slide shows that you can see here the railway wagon where flat steel deck you can see here, that can be considered as a plate because it has to be designed for the load bearing purpose. Then you may see here the aircraft where just like in ship we have seen, in aircraft there are many components which comprises of the plates, and there they are using the composite plates. Then you can see here the roofs of the building, that is folded plate. And then any slab, RCC slab, can be called, as long as the thickness is less as compared to the other dimensions, we may call it slab. Of course, slabs are designed for the bending, and that can be called as one of the plate. Then you may see here the steel plate and combination of stiffness and the girder, this kind of system where you can have the plates of various forms, uses different materials. So any material, I mean any structure which is flat. So we can basically classify the plates from theory point of view, because there is a long history in the plate theory development, and perhaps there are I will not go into detail of the history part because there are names. It's a different subject altogether. And perhaps there are many mathematicians, scientists, and engineers. They are involved in developing this. Some few names are basically, the Euler. Euler is Leonardo the Euler. Then Kirchhoff from Russia, and there are Poisson and Bernoulli, entire Bernoulli family, Euler Bernoulli. Bernoulli is the one which has also work in the fluid mechanics area. He is the same person who has also contributed in the development of the plate theory. So I will not talk about historical part, but there are categories of the plates based on the dimensions, that's the geometry. Now there is a technical difference in categorizing these plates that we will see afterwards, that why you are calling these as thin plate and thick plate. So there is a thin plate which is developed by a person named Kirchhoff. Then we have a category based on the small deflection and the large deflection. So the plate which we will have with the small deflection is a Kirchhoff plate theory that we are going to discuss in today's session, and thin plates with large deflection. So now thin plates with large deflection is a kind of membrane. You have seen the tents, that kind of category when you apply the load and it generates a larger deflection, and we may call it basically, the thin plates with larger deflection. So not necessary, that you are likely to basically the design and analysis both are different phenomena in both these categories. Also then thick plate, as I told you, if the third dimension of the plate is very large, then it categorizes in thick plate, and we will see the difference, what exactly is the difference in thin plate and thick plates. Then from material point of view, there are composite plates made of different materials. As we have seen in the photograph, their composite sandwich plates are used in the aircrafts and shipbuildings and all. Then according to non-linear materials and non-homogeneous material, the type of material, it may behave non-linearly or linearly, we can categorize a plate. And from geometry point of view, we have circular, trapezoidal, and triangular or skew plates of various shapes. Or then you can use actually different coordinate system to basically analyze this kind of plates. Okay, now why plate structures are so popular? So one thing is, it is very efficient in carrying the loads. Basically the thickness is very small, but the other dimensions are very large, so you can cover. First thing is, the load carrying capacity of the plates are much stiffer as compared to the beam bending and the other type of structures. So also you can cover the larger areas without beams, okay, without support of the beams and columns, and mainly it is suitable for industrial and warehouses and public buildings. Then second reason is, of course, it is very simple to manufacture, because you know the difficulty in construction point of view, that if you want to construct the arch or the shell, they are curved, the formwork part will be very difficult, and it is it is easy for any simple geometry to construct. So the popularity is because of that. Then we have of course factory made precast forms, you can easily manufacture, and then you can take it to the site and construct. Also there are you can assemble, like we have seen the folded plate case, folded plate roof, where there are assemblies of the plates. And the popularity of the folded plate was early in the Germany in 1920s, and then it became very popular in Russia and United States in 1930s. But nowadays you have seen many structures everywhere around the world which covers the folded plates. Then, as I told you, plate is more rigid and very high load carrying capacity. It's 10% greater stiffness, and then of course economical over longer span. So these are several advantage. Main thing is the bending mechanism, because it's because of bending and the membrane action of the plate, because it's very thin. It is more stiffer as compared to beams, and that is the main reason why actually it produces the greater stiffness. It is the main reason for the popularity of the plate structures. Now, the basically now we enter into the theoretical development. So I have again shown the diagram which comprises of the plate which is shown here with axis x, y, and z. So geometrical definition of this plate is, it is a flat structural element. Of course, I keep on repeating this parameter because thickness is much more smaller as compared to other two dimensions. Now, thickness has a very significant role in contribution of the bending stiffness. And that all of you know, because in case of beam also you have analyzed beams, moment of inertia, and that BD cube by 12. Okay, the D cube. So D is your depth of the beam. So here, when I want to compare this plate with the beam, at every step, I think I'm trying to compare the plate with the beam so that you can correlate that deep part, and it is much easier to understand. So plate depth of the plate, that is thickness, we call it thickness, and it is customary to divide the plate into exactly two halves, and the middle the surface, middle surface is named as basically the mid plane, mid surface of the plate. Now, what is so significance about this middle surface of the plate? It is very similar to, basically, if we analyze a beam, we analyze only the line, that is x-axis. The deflection curve of the beam, and along the x-axis. So it is important that we first divide the plates into exactly two halves, and that this middle surface is called as it has significance, and we will later on see how what kind of significance for this middle surface. Now, this thickness is always measured in the normal direction. Normal meaning it's 90 degree. Okay. So to define the criteria for the thin plate is shorter span. There can be rectangular plate. I am not telling only square plate. There can be rectangular plate also. The ratio of the thickness to the shorter span, if less than 1/20, then we can call the plate as the thin plate. Okay. And the significance of defining the thin and thick, that we will see what exactly is the difference thin and thick. And suppose I am having 0.2 thickness, 0.2 meter, and then I am having 5 meter span, and then ratio of shorter span, thickness to the shorter span is giving you 0.04, then I can call that plate as, it turns out to be 0.05, less than 0.05. I can call that as a thin plate, and I can apply the theory which we are discussing in today's talk to that particular plate. And there can be, if the ratio is greater than 1/20, that is 0.05, if you decrease your span as compared to thickness, or you increase the depth as compared to the span, then also you are likely to get the deeper plate, and then the different theory is applied, that is called as thick plate theory. Okay, now the purpose of this slide is to show you that it has two-way bending. Okay, just like beam has one-way bending, I have the slide, like beam bends. This is x-axis of the beam, you can see here, and when it bends actually, you can see in the symmetry line of the beam. So suppose I am having a beam, and this is the cross section of the beam, and then symmetry line is this y-axis, right? And this the x-axis is going in the longitudinal direction, but this is the cross section, and you can see here the symmetry line. So when symmetry line is covering the, it will define the plane of the bending, in which plane it is deforming. It is not deforming out of the plane. So this is a plane of symmetry, which we can say in case of beam it is xy plane, because whenever you see any beam, it will deflect in, if this is my axis of the beam, it will deflect this way only. It will not deflect the other way, right? It will not deflect the other way. So symmetry line will define in which plane the beam is bending. Similarly here, we have to define the plane of bending. So there are two plane of bending. One is covering OX and Z. Okay, and second plane is covering O by Z. So this is the plane of bending, and in the other axis, this is the plane of bending. So beam plate will deform only in that particular, plane, basically. So now, to develop the plate theory, any theory, in fact, we need to understand the hypothesis. There are assumptions made to start any, any theory. I mean, not only plate theory, but if you want to understand the theoretical development, there are certain conditions, certain hypotheses, certain assumptions that are made. So we will try to see these assumptions. Those are made in the plate theory. So first assumption in developing the plate theory is deflection of the mid surface is so small as compared to the thickness of the plate. So it is very obvious, if thickness is 0.2, then I am assuming that deflection of the plate is lesser than that. That is a otherwise it will become large deflection plate theory, right? So this is the first assumption that we are doing, plate theory with the small deflections. And in engineering, what a slab we are designing, or what a plate structures we are designing, we don't want our structure to deform larger. Okay, we want our structures to deform smaller, and we design it for small deflection. Of course, we check the deflection criteria and all, but then we assume that deflection should be small. So that is the first assumption, that deflection of the mid surface. Now, again and again, I'm using the mid surface word because you have seen in case of beam, we are analyzing only lines, and in case of plate, we will be analyzing only the mid surface. And we will see how this phenomena we can correlate with the assumptions of the beam theory. Then mid plane remains unstrained subsequent to the bending. The meaning of this is the middle plane does not deform, and this assumption is very, very analogous to the beam. All of you know the neutral axis and neutral surface actually does not have any strain, right? It remains the, and even the stress diagram, you can see the neutral axis, the stress is zero. This is a similar assumption that along with the beam theory also. So most of the, except this 2 dimension, most of the assumptions are in line with the beam bending theory, which was also developed by, I told you, the Euler-Bernoulli. It is called as Euler-Bernoulli beam theory. So plate theory, in plate, because it's a 2 dimension, we are calling mid plane. So mid surface is considered similar to the neutral surface of the plate, and it does not deform. Okay, it remains unstrained. Basically, there won't be any strain. Then third assumption, which is extremely important, that plane sections initially normal to the mid surface remain plane, and normal to that surface after bending. And meaning of these is vertical shear strains, that is gamma xz and gamma yz are negligible. So geometrical significance of this is I will cover in the next slide. So here you can see the meaning of that assumption. Third assumption, plane sections initially normal to the mid surface remain plane and normal to the surface after bending. So suppose I'm having this one of the face of the plate. Okay, one of the face of the plate. Basically, if this is a plate and this is the surface I am talking about, there are two surfaces, I mean two planes. There are only one plane I am talking about and it bends. So front surface, similarly, if this is X and Z, we have Y and Z as well in the plate because it's a two-dimensional structure. But this aspect can be explained to you. Basically, the geometrical significance of that aspect is when you have the axis of the sorry. Okay, so when you have the axis of the surface, the front surface of the plate is x-axis, and this vertical line initially, which was straight 90 degree to the x-axis, even after deformation, this remains as 90 degree. So basically plane section means a cross section, plane section remain plane before stretching and after deformation. So before stretching, if this is 90 degree, normal meaning 90 degree, this remains 90 degree, and after deformation, this remains 90 degree as well. So you can see here the x-axis has come here after deformation, and this axis, which was earlier the straight line, vertical line, that is z-axis, when it deforms, it maintains the 90 degree to this. Now, significance of this is you have studied the shear strain, that it is the definition of the shear strain is two sides of the shear strains, just like it is shown here in the second image, that if this is 90 degree and if you apply any shear stress and these two sides will distort less than 90 degree. So when you apply any shear stress on this particular cube, you know this angle 90 degree does not remain 90 degree at all. It is lesser than that. That means effect of the shear stress. And effect of the effect of the shear stress is shear strain. Two sides does not remain 90 and there will be some distortion, change in the angle, and we may call it the body is subjected to shear strain. And similarly, here the assumption of the second assumption, that is plane section initially normal meaning 90 degree to the middle surface remain plane and normal 90 degree even after the bending, after the deformation. And the meaning of this is, on this surface there will be a gamma xz and there will be a gamma yz. These two shearing strain component will be approximately 0. And this is about thin plate theory. Okay, this is our thin plate theory, that you are neglecting these two shearing strain components. There will be a shearing strain in the x and y direction that you cannot neglect, but this, because of this assumption 90 degree of the perpendicular line and the neutral axis of the plate, you can assume reasonably, and this has happened, this has simplified so much. Significance of this assumption is so much that you can write your entire equations in the middle surface only. So basically, we end up analyzing not the 3D plates, where three-dimensional theories are applied, but we are actually analyzing only the mid surface, and that has simplified so much. The entire problem reduces, and it reduces our complications in the analysis also. So from simple geometrical assumption, you can take this is basically, so this bending, this is purely a bending rotations. Whatever rotations theta the beam can have, all of you have analyzed the beam, the plate can have, all of you have analyzed the beam where the rotations are calculated at the supports or somewhere in the middle of the beam. So here in the case of plate also, the rotations because of the bending will be only not because of the shearing angle. Okay, there are rotations here due to shearing angle also, but that rotation due to the shearing angle, because it's the angle, we can actually neglect it, and then shear strain are also neglected. Now you can see here how we can simplify this. You can take the tangent or the small theta, and you may write your components of this horizontal displacement, that is u, as minus, it's going in negative direction. You can see here the z axis is here and it's going negative direction, minus z times maybe sine theta or tan theta. But this theta is just the bending rotation, and you know what is the rotation, that is theta, gives you del w by del x, and on the other plane you have the del w by del y on the other side. Okay, plate has two surfaces, one is this, so we are talking only about this, and second, automatically similarly you can see on the other side which covering y axis, it is same, but you get the rotation in the y direction, that is del w by del y, but these are bending rotations. These del w by del y is bending rotation, these are bending rotations. Del w by del y, del w by del x is also bending rotations. So we have written u and v components, and then we will, as I'm repeating again, we are neglecting the shearing component in the z direction, that is the shearing strain. And coming back to our assumptions, so these assumptions has a lot of geometrical significance. It impacts a lot of theoretical simplification in your formulation, and that we will try to see in our further section. Okay, the other assumption, that is the deflection of the plate is associated principally with bending strain. Okay, so there will be only bending strain. There will be shear strain won't be there in z direction, but there will be shear strain in x and y. Basically, in plane shear will be there, x and y. Okay, then because the thickness is small, in plane shear will be there, but there won't be shear strain component, which is gamma xz covering that z plane, z axis, the plane which is covering z axis. So that is xz and yz. Then normal strain is omitted. So normal strain is of course epsilon z, because the thickness is small, it's reasonably with a good accuracy, we can assume that. In case of beam also, you must have read somewhere that sigma z, that in z direction stresses and strains are approximately, we can neglect this stress and strain. So these are the basic understanding of the plate theory and the hypothesis, and named after the person who has developed that. We name it Kirchhoff hypothesis, and analogous to Euler-Bernoulli beam theory, and except the dimension part, rest of the parameters will not change. Okay, so now conclusion is sort of in this discussion is there are two planes of bending in the plates. Unlike in beam is having only one plane of bending. Because of the resulting decrease in the complexity, a three-dimensional plate problem reduces to one dimension, one involving in the two dimensions. In beam, it is one dimension, but in plates, there are two dimensions. then governing equations of the plate can be derived in a concise and straightforward manner. So we simplify with this assumption, we start our discussion for the simplification. Okay, before understanding the plate stress and strain components, it is essential to review this basic elasticity. In elasticity, basically it is a mechanics of the three-dimensional solid body, where you understand the stresses and the strain in 3 dimensions, and strains are actually completely geometrical based. When I pull any body, when I apply any load, and then based on the geometry, I can write by simple definition of the strain that delta L by L, that is being applied, that we have applied in your strength of material solid mechanics theory, that everyone knows about, the normal strain in the bars, and that you can apply simple this, but this formula has a limitation that you cannot apply when you want to analyze a solid body in the 3 dimensions. So in that case, we need to take the help of differential calculus, because at the point we want to determine the stresses. This is a average thing. Whatever stresses, that is P by A, and whatever stresses we are determining, those will give you the average stress, right? It is not the stress at a point. It is a stress at a cross section, because you are you are dividing that with the cross sectional area. This is your average stress basically. It is not your stress at a point, single point. So in solid body, in 3-dimension body, when you want to detail out the accurate analysis, you want to determine the strain at a point, and you want to determine the stress at a point. And we take the help of calculus, because the differential element has to be used. The smaller, let's say any body, I am having any body, and I just take the smaller area, that is dA, or the smaller dimensions, and then I integrate. But then in the process, I can get at every point, I am able to determine what is the condition of stress and what is the condition of strain. So that is about 3-dimension elasticity. But these stresses and strain in 3 dimensions, because plate is a 2-dimensional structure, I want to utilize these stresses and strain in the plate theory as well, because it's a 2-dimension. I need to cover all the strain component, possible stress, possible strain components in both the cases. So here, to give you just briefly, I will cover this 3D elasticity, where you have seen the point A and B, and it has a deformation A dash and B dash, and then you can write the differential, that is dx plus del u by del x into dx, the change in the length. So the original length is this dx, you can see here, and then if increase in the length, how much is the increase in, that will defined by the differentials, del u by dx plus del u by del x into dx. So this part you already know, because you may write something like dy by dx, and how much f dash x, how much is the change in the function itself, that is fx equal to y, change in the function, that is dy. When I want to write dy, how do I write? I will write dy is equal to f dash x into dx, and my f dash x is dy by dx and dx. So change in the function, that is differential dy, can be written this way. If I have u, then change in the u, I can write del u by del x into dx. So that's the change in the increase, basically how much is the increase or decrease, but the variation of the strain within the body. And then you apply simple your final deformation minus original deformation, divide by the length. So here we have taken differential length. Here, of course, if you see here, you will get dx also, that is a final length is this dx plus del u by del x into dx minus dx. This is your final length minus original length. Okay, and then divide by dx, that is the original length, and it will give you the strain component in x direction. And similarly, you can find here these terms gets cancelled, and then you get this del u by del x. And that is how the strain components in the three-dimensional elasticity you may want to determine. So epsilon x is del u by del x. Similarly, in other two dimensions, you get del v by del y, because there the displacement in the y direction is v, and displacement in the z direction is w. And of course, as I discussed with you about shearing strain, it is a change in the angle. When you apply any shearing stress here on top and bottom, and maybe here vertical and downward, this shear stress, when you apply, this will result in the distortion of the element. And because I talk about this is about one plane, I'm talking about one plane, but it can be applied to other two planes also. And if it is in x and y axis, here the gamma xy is being written. So how much is the change in the angle? That is theta. You may want to write this theta. This is, you may see here that this is increasing, u increasing with respect to y. Okay, so you may see here u increasing with respect to y. You just have to see how much is the increase with respect to which axis. So here, if you increase u, but you may see here that y it is increasing. You may see here vertically y. Sorry. So this theta is equal to the del w by del x. You take the smaller angle, tan theta you may take. You may see here del v by del x divide by this length into dx, and it will get basically del v by del x. And similarly here you will get del u by del y. You take the angle here, and total shearing angle will be what? This is gamma 1, gamma 2. So total shearing angle will be gamma 1 plus gamma 2, and you may get here the total shearing angle will be del u by del y plus del v by del x. And this is gamma xy. Similarly, you may write with the cyclic notation. You may end up writing x, y and z. Wherever you have x, you put y. Wherever you have y, you put z, and wherever you have z, you put x. And with the cyclic rotation, you may get the other components also. That is gamma yz and gamma zx. So according to plate theory assumptions that we have been discussing, these two components we are actually making it 0. Because in the plate theory, just now we have discussed gamma yz and gamma zx. This shearing strain component are 0. And then we are making simplification in our analysis. Similarly, here epsilon z is also not there. So there will be only epsilon x, epsilon y, that is the normal strain in the x and y direction. And you have the in-plane shearing strain, that is gamma xy. But we end up analyzing only the mid surface. Okay, now this is about, that was about strain, and I told you the strain is completely based on the geometrical deformation. There are no equilibrium involved here. We have not used anything like equilibrium, static equilibrium equations. It's based on the geometrical deformations. Now, the stresses in 3 dimension can be defined as, there are 6 strain components. 3 normal, that is sigma x, sigma y, and sigma z, and tau xy, tau xz, and tau zx. Sorry, zx and zy will be same. So the plane will be xy, xz, and yz. So there will be a yz here. So 6 stress components, sigma x, 3 normal and 3 shearing stress, and there are sign convention. Of course, the tension for normal, it is easy to determine. The tensile stresses are positive, compressive stresses are negative. So sigma x y z sign convention is easy to determine, but shearing stress sign convention is very similar to our shear strain sign convention of the beam that we are determining here. But I want to define the positive and negative sign convention in a different way. That any positive plane, that is plane perpendicular to the x-axis, the stress which is acting in positive plane and positive direction. So suppose this is the x plane defined by normal to the x-axis. Normal means 90 degree perpendicular to the x-axis. We call it x plane. And when your shear stress is acting in on positive plane, this is called as positive. Right hand side is positive plane, top is positive and the front is positive. These three are positive and the remaining three are negative. There are 6 surfaces. So when the shearing stress is acting on the positive plane and positive direction, for example, positive plane, and you can see here the positive z axis, then we call it positive shear strain. But shear stress which is acting in negative plane and negative direction is also positive shear stress, and the vice versa. So if shear stress on positive plane and in negative direction are negative shears. So similar, very similar to the sign convention which you have been using for plotting the shear force diagram. That is, vertical and downward. It will give you same way. And there are pair of shear stresses. They are complementary to each other. So you may see here the tau xy is same as tau yx. And there is a Hooke's law, which is very straightforward in 3 dimension. To understand the Hooke law is because of the Poisson's ratio. If you pull one body, and then because of Poisson's, if you are pulling body in x direction, and Poisson's effect will be in y and z direction, and you incorporate that, and finally you use the superposition principle. Similarly, you pull the body in z direction, and then you introduce the effect of the Poisson's ratio in y and x direction, and similarly for the third direction. So by adding these 3 components, you will actually, by superpositioning, you get the Hooke's law, that is relating your stresses and strain with the Young's modulus. So for isotropic and homogeneous material, our Poisson ratio and Young's modulus will be constant, that is mu and E. So these Hooke's law are written here. And of course, the shearing strain components, these are very similar definition that we have already learned in our solid mechanics course. So sign convention is equally important because it is just like bending moment, shear force, and the stresses and strain. So positive and negative sign conventions has you need to have some clarity, for defining the sign convention for the shear stresses. For shear stresses, it is very important. Now this whole stress cube will give you the stress at a point. Actually, this is the magnified version of the imaging where stresses are acting in 3-dimensional cube. But what we have defined is a stress at a point, that is one single point in 3 dimensions. Now we are going to use these equations, which is for the Hooke's law and also for the strain, for defining the plate theory assumptions now. So it will be this portion we have already seen. This u is equal to minus z, and the bending rotation, that is del w by del x, based on our assumptions. Like if I recall, this we have already determined from the geometrical interpretation. That's a simple rotation. Okay, you are writing tan theta approximately, and then you write tan theta. That's the bending rotation, and it relates your translation in deflection in x and y direction. And then we may be able to write these 2 components like this. And then now from this, we will be able to write the strain components within the plate. So that is, as I discussed with you, that we are neglecting epsilon z and gamma yz and gamma zx. So we are writing epsilon x, epsilon y, and gamma xy. So you may see here the epsilon x, epsilon y, gamma xy. And then I am substituting del u by del x, del v by del x. I mean, these are the formula, but I'm substituting component u here, component v here, u and v here. So you will be able to see that there is, in the formulation, there is no differentiation quantity with respect to z, because it's a 2-dimensional surface. We are analyzing plate as a 2-dimensional surface. So above equations provide the strain at any point in the plate. So these three components are called as strain. And it has, this has the rotation, of course, theta, maybe I want to call theta x, and maybe I want to call this as theta y. This is a bending rotation. I may even replace this with theta x and theta y. But what is this quantity? Now, from the observation, you may see here that there are three quantities which we are getting. This is the derivative of the rate of change of the displacement, double differentiation. So derivative of rate of change of the slope, and we may define this as a curvature. So it is very important in when we are learning beam also, we need to know the curvature. That is how we can define the curvature. It's the second order derivative of the displacement or first order derivative of the slope d theta by dx. So here if I call del w by del x is theta x, I can say this is del theta x by del x, and this is del theta y by del y. So this is what is about the strain in the two-dimensional plate, and curvature we have defined. Now you will be able to see, now in our next slide we will see geometrical significance of this is very easy to understand. This, that if this is a slope and slope is already there and rate of change of the slope in the same direction. But you look at here, del square w by del x del y. The rate of change of slope in one direction x, and then again rate of change of w with respect to, I mean the slope with respect to y. So one is changing with respect to x, other one is changing with respect to y. So this phenomena you have not, it doesn't observe in beam. Beam is just this normal epsilon x. Okay, because we are calculating only the normal strain in the beam. But in plate, this is the additional observation you may see, that the rate of change of slope with respect to x as well as with respect to y. So it may lead to twisting of the plate. So that is the additional thing. You may see this diagram where twisting of the plate is seen. Basically you can imagine, you can take a piece of paper and just try to understand and imagine that in x direction it is changing, at the same time it is changing with respect to y direction. So see, basically analysis of plate, you end up analyzing only one middle surface, that is one single paper. Okay, and geometrical behavior by bending, and you may understand basically structural behavior of the plate that we are more interested in. So as I told you, we can define the curvatures and the radius of curvature. So curvature, radius of curvature is opposite of the curvature. Okay, 1 by rho x, 1 by rho y, and then we have rho xy. The radius of curvature, basically the curvature varying with respect to x and y. But in case of beam, how do you actually define the curvature, that we will see in the next slide. So basically the last expression is referred to as twist of the middle plane. So middle plane will also twist. You must have seen the twisting phenomena. This is a kind of twisting that can happen in case of plate. So though it is bending object, but there are twisting also. Along with bending there are twisting, but in case of beam there are only bending. So in case of beam, the radius of curvature is defined I am just relating both the aspect in beam, because it's just a line here, and radius of curvature is when you draw the normal to this line. take any two point in the beam curvature, I mean beam deflection curve. Take any 2 points on the curve and just take the 90 degree of normal 2 points, the 90 degree. So you may see here the 90 degree here, 90 degree. And when you draw the normals, there will be one point, this normal will meet at one point. And this is called as center of curvature, O dash. If you draw the normal, you will get O dash here. And then here you may get the radius of curvature. And the curvature will be the opposite of that. And even the sign is opposite of that. If the curvature is positive, radius of curvature will be negative. If curvature is negative, radius of curvature will be positive. Now here you can see the y-axis going upward positive. So radius of curvature will be positive, but curvature will be negative. And the vice versa. And in this case of beam, you already know how to write this, right? The rho, how to write these arc lengths. Okay. So ds is from your trigonometry, we can write rho d theta. Rho d theta is equal to your ds. And from this I can define curvature. And ds is approximately, because it's a small deflection, I can assume dx is same as approximately dx, that's the horizontal length. And I may able to write these dx as same as ds, and I can define the curvature, that is 1 by rho from this equation. 1 by rho is d theta by dx. And this is how the curvature is being defined. But in this, we are getting the quantity from the strain, the second order of the deflection in case of plate. So you may use the equations directly. And this is about slope, that is dv by dx in case of D. Now in case of plate, there are strain curvature relation. In case of beam also we had a much simplified version. You may see this equation, epsilon x just minus z times del square w by del x in case of beam. So you may want to refer this figure, where in case of beam we actually determine how much is the change in the fiber away from the neutral axis, and from this simple definition of the strain, the final length minus original length divided by the change the original length, and that will give you the strain. So L1 here you may see, I want to write basically how much is the change in the length away from the neutral axis, that is distance y. So EF, this is one fiber of the beam away from the neutral axis. How much is the change in the length? That I will be able to write, that is rho minus, because rho is a radius of curvature, rho minus y into d theta, that I have written. And then you may simplify rho d theta is your dx, and you simplify it further, you just take it the strain definition from this, and you get strain in the beam as minus y by rho. And these observations are very similar in case of strain curvature relation, in case of plate also, that minus y, so it varies linearly with respect to neutral axis, increase or decrease. So minus y divided by rho, or 1 by rho is your curvature, so opposite of that. And then you may see here the similar observation, that strain curvature relation. And this is the first thing that every any theoretical development, we need to write the strains quantity, and then we can take those equations further to determine the remaining quantities. Okay. Now moving forward, that Hooke's law can be simplified very easily. Now I will quickly go through these formulas. That we have seen that epsilon z is we are making it 0. Gamma yz we are making it 0. Gamma xz we are making based on our assumption. of the plate theory. So you will be able to see that assumption everywhere. In every equation you will be able to see. So you will see the stress and the stresses from the Hooke's law can be simplified like this. Only thing is I have made this sigma x on the left side and the epsilon on the right side. You can solve the simultaneous equation and you can get this equation, maybe from matrix inversion also, that you bring the stresses on the left side and bring the epsilon on the right side. So we end up having, instead of this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, instead of this 6, I am having only now 3 stress components. This is my Hooke's law for the plate theory. So we have seen strain displacement relation. We have seen the Hooke's law. Now we will see the equilibrium equations. So these 3 things are required for me to solve any problems of any solid mechanics. One is I want Hooke's law, that in case of beam we already know Hooke's law is sigma is equal to E times epsilon x. Then we already have epsilon x as your minus z times curvature in case of beam, in case of curvature, or minus z times divided by rho, that is radius of curvature. So this is about beam, but this is about plate. This is Hooke's law, and the strain relation we have already seen. So I will side by side compare both the aspects for the proper comparison of both the things, how the development of the equations that are happening in case of plate theory. Now, what are stress resultant? Stress resultants are basically, we in case of beam also we never calculate stress. We calculate stresses, but we plot bending moment and shear force diagram. So bending moment, how much is the bending moment at any particular cross section? It is very easy to use that quantity in the design purpose. So we always replace our stresses in the form of stress resultant, that we call it moments, right? Or the forces. If we integrate the stresses over the surface, we get the stress resultant, that is the moments, because the force, it's the equivalent force. What is the purpose of replacing the stresses in the form of equivalent moment or equivalent force, maybe axial force or vertical force? So those are called as stress resultant. So it can result from, sigma x, sigma y, tau xy are the stresses. One is shear, these two are normal in case of plate. But when you integrate the stresses, you get the stress resultant, and that we are calling it either moments or twisting moments. And it is the equivalent force that I need to replace in place of stresses. So there is a significance, because I want moments also. So what I do is, I have already related my stresses with the curvature and the displacement. And here you may see here we have already got this. What I will give you the development of this equation. Sigma x is Hooke's law, but epsilon x, you may see here epsilon x, epsilon y here, and gamma xy. So I will simply substitute epsilon x and gamma xy from this equation into the Hooke's law. So I have already replaced here those equations. It is simply it is not a great thing. You simply introduce those equations here. In place of curvature, I am the strain, I am simply introducing those curvature equation here in terms of displacement W, because ultimately my problem of plate analysis results in finding out how much is W, that is the deflection. Now in this equation, you may see here when I put Z is equal to 0, that is your middle plane, and you will see all these quantities are 0. That means in the middle plane there are no stresses, and it matches with our assumption of the beam also, that on neutral axis there are no stresses. Sigma x is 0. When you put Z is 0, because it's the middle axis, Z is 0, it will give you 0, and it matches with our assumption. So that's what I wanted to tell you from this. Now about integration of stresses, how we need to visualize these 3 stresses, and then we convert into forces, and then we try to integrate it to get the moments within the plate. So what I do, okay, this is about the similar aspect in the beam, sigma x, and then you are replacing with the curvature equation, stress and the curvature and the deflection equation. Now you need to visualize in plate, you have these three dimension. Originally it is 3 dimension, but I want to replace this sigma x distribution over the cross section. I want to replace it with single equivalent moment. So what I do, I simply take the differential moment. First I multiply this with the cross sectional area to get the force, and then there is a lever arm, that's a z. You multiply it with the z and integrate it from top to bottom, and you get your replacement of the moment. When you integrate this force over this surface, you get the moment, that is bending moment, mx in x direction. So the sign convention, we follow the right hand rule when you are applying any force, and then the sign convention for the moment is the positive sign when the direction of the thumb is your right hand rule. So similar to that here also. So simply you are multiplying sigma x with the cross sectional area, get the force and get the differential moment and integrate it over the surface, and you get the bending moment in x direction. Due to sigma y, you get the similar thing, and you get here my. To integrate sigma y, take the moment due to sigma y, the force occurring because of sigma y, take the moment due to that, and you get the my. So you get mx as well as you get my, and integrate it. Now the third quantity, that is tau xy. So if you integrate the tau xy, you may see here the tau xy, this force will also produce a moment. And then if you integrate with respect to the thickness and then integrate, this is a lever arm, that z, if you multiply that with the z and tau xy and the cross sectional area, you get basically twisting moment. Okay, so I want to replace tau xy with the twisting moment. Tau xy is the stress, you will convert into force, and then you find out the moment due to that force. Okay, then you get, then what is the direction of twisting moment? So basically you get here mx, you get here my, and then you have the twisting moment all over the edges because of the shear stress, which are complementary. You may see here the shear stress tau xy is acting like this, tau xy. You already know the shear stresses are complementary to each other, and then it is always acting in pair. Like in case of beam also, it's always acting in the pair. Okay, and top and bottom we are neglecting. In case of beam, top surface is free of shear stresses, and then we are neglecting it. Otherwise it is always a 4 pair of shear stresses, top, bottom, and then right hand and left hand side. So here also, if you, the middle plane, the tau xy is acting, you take the moment due to that, and you will get actually the twisting moment over the surface. And what is the nature of twisting moment? It will act like this. Only over this surface, the twisting moment is like this. It will rotate here. Okay, so this is about a plate. I think I will similar observation you may see in case of beam. You only have the one sigma x here, that is only mx. In case of beam, you already have only one thing, that is mx, and this my and mxy, twisting moment and the moment in y direction won't be there in case of beam. But in beam, similar line, the equation development will happen. I think I will skip this slide. This is a cross section of the beam. You may see here that the replacement of the moment due to the integration of the stresses. This is a stress converted into force, and then you multiply with y, and then integrate it over the area. You get the moment. Okay, so this is called a stress resultants. So this is about beam, but in case of plate, you have 3 such quantities: mx, my, mxy. And here, of course, sigma x you are replacing with the curvature, and in the process you are getting the second moment of area, that is moment of inertia, and you get the beam moment curvature relation in case of beam. And this is definitely going to help us in establishing our final equations. Okay, so here the sign convention for the shear force is the same as that of shear stress. Positive moment is in plate also, positive moment of course in the tension in the bottom, compression in the top. And also it is important to note that though we are neglecting shearing strain components, gamma xz and gamma yz, we are not neglecting shear forces. Okay, so this is something like it has a equal magnitude. Just like in beam, we are not neglecting shear force, though we are neglecting gamma xz, right? That vertical shear strain we are neglecting because of that assumption, you know, plane section remain plane before and after bending normal to the plane. In the process, in case of beam, we have only one, we get rid of only one gamma xz. Here in case of plate, we have two, gamma xz and gamma yz. But at the same time, in beam also, like we can't neglect shear forces, right? They are already there. So shear forces in case of plates are qx and qy. Just like we are using b as symbol in case of beam, here we have to choose two symbols in x and y direction. So qx and qy. Of course, it is acting in z direction, but we name it qx and qy. So further, this is when you integrate, you get basically you also want to determine if you once you know the moment, and I have this moment equation, and then I can replace this into the formula which is in the stresses. So these are these equation. Here I am able to replace epsilon x sigma equation, and I can determine basically the stress also. So it is just like in case of beam, how you are determining the my by I. Okay, my by I, how you are determining in case of beam. Like here you may see if I know the curvature and moment relation, and then I take the Hooke's law again, I try to replace that curvature again in that, and I also replace the moment curvature relation in that. So in the process there are three steps. Once I should know curvature and moment relation, then I use the Hooke's law, I replace the the curvature, and then I replace the curvature instead of moment instead of curvature, and then I get sigma x. And similarly here also, if I try to use my Hooke's law, sigma x, and you may try to replace the moment curvature relation, that is these three equations, if you try to replace, and you get actually integration. I mean, there is integration involved here. I have shown this one example how to integrate this. When you integrate it in the process, you get something like this kind of term, and this is very similar to the kind of term like EI, that is bending stiffness, flexural stiffness. So here we are able to derive the flexural stiffness of the plate, and that is Et cube by 12 1 minus mu square. This is called as flexural stiffness of the plate, and I am able to get this stress formula. It is very similar to your bending stress, but these are the bending stress in the plate and also the shear stress. So there are two bending stress, sigma x, sigma y, and there are one shear stress. And you may see here the bending stiffness also. Now, equilibrium equation. So it is very easy to, now we are able to replace the stress resultant. Instead of stresses, I have already calculated for my calculation purpose. It may be used for the design, but I also need to know the bending moments. So I have already replaced my shear stress with shear forces Qx, Qy, and I have already replaced stresses, normal stress with the bending moments, stress resultant. And if I take the equilibrium of the mid surface, showing all the forces, this is a free body diagram by showing all the forces and the variation of that in the mid surface of the plate. Why variation? Because I know in case of, I will give you a simple example. In case of beam also, suppose I travel, there is a load apply here and I travel from here to here. The bending moment here and here is not same, right? So there is a variation in the bending moment. And how do I write? It is dm. If the moment is here is m, and here variation in the moment is dm. And I am bound to use calculus here because I want to find out the equilibrium equation of the mid surface here in a more generalized way. This using calculus and differential calculus is to use your equations in a more general way rather than one specific case. And that's why I'm showing the variation here. And you may see here the left side upward and right side downward, the positive sign convention of the shear force. Here also you may see here upward and downward, and then there is a variation with respect to particular axis. This is varying from qy, then this is varying with respect to y, and this is qx, and it is varying with respect to x-axis. And according to that variation you can write. And simply you are projecting all the forces in the z direction. You multiply that with the differential length, because it's per unit length you are getting. So I can take according to positive and negative sign, I may take these equations, just get one equilibrium equation from this. Similarly, I take the moment equilibrium equations. You may see the mid surface, and twisting moment also will be contributed here. The moment due to the shear forces will also be contributed here, and moment due to the mx and my. So if I am taking the moment about x-axis, if this is my x-axis, I need to see which are the forces which will produce a moment about x-axis. So you may see here in this diagram that qx is the one. It will produce a moment about x-axis, the right hand rule, and I follow the right hand rule. Let's say the qy is like this. You are rotating qy, and then the a positive x-axis is the right hand side, the thumb direction is the positive, and so I am considering this as a positive. You may see here. Similarly, the moments which are so basically clockwise, anti-clockwise, whatever way you want to define it, but always follow the right hand rule. I think that is easier to write your equation. So here my will surely produce the the moment about the y-axis and the variation of it, and according to positive, negative, I can write. So one is giving you the right hand side thumb, and other one is giving you the left hand side thumb. So you may see here the the sign here, negative sign. You may see here this component produce the negative sign, and here you may want to see that twisting moment in the x direction. So twisting moment, you may see here which twisting moment is producing the moment about x-axis. So you may see here this is mxy. Okay, so this mxy is producing, you may imagine the twisting moment of this surface. This is my surface and this is a twisting moment. I am twisting it and it is producing the moment about x-axis. So moments due to not all components you have to incorporate. When you are taking moment due to all the moment in the x direction, due to all the moments, you have to take care of that moments only, and you have to take care of that particular shear force only. So this is my second equation. I am getting it. Now what about loading? Somebody may ask, okay, I have the loading also, transverse direction, there will be a loading here. But if you may see the moments due to loading will be q into dx dy, and then you further multiply the moment due to about x-axis dy by 2, and it further it becoming the smallest. This is already a very small, so less than 1, then dy square even lesser than that. So this is a small quantity, and you may see here this is a neglected quantity. So loading moments will not be considered because dominant quantities which will which will be considered under the equilibrium of the plate will be these moments, that is my, mxy, mx, and also qx and qy. So second moment we are getting it. Now similarly, I think you may imagine now the moments due to the about y-axis, all the forces, that is qx, will produce a moment about the y-axis. Also the mx will produce a moment about y-axis and myx. So you imagine this surface of the plate, how this is a free body diagram. This is simple equilibrium equations. There is nothing great. Only thing is we have considered the variation. That is, if one side it is mx, other side it is the variation of that mx with respect to the length where it is changing its quantity. So third equilibrium equation we are getting. Now from this second and third equation, we take out qx and qy, and then we substitute back into the first equation, that is this equation, and what we are getting is we are simplifying this and we are getting this equation after simplification. Okay, and we are considering this mxy is opposite of myx because one is acting in opposite direction, and due to the fact the complementary shear stress is tau xy is equal to tau yx, and we may write because the moment will, both arrows of the shear stress will be in opposite direction, so it will produce reverse moment, and that's why this mxy can be opposite of myx. And then we again try to, this is our equilibrium equation. We are replacing here, sorry. Okay, this was our equation here. And you may replace that here into the first equation of the shear force. Sorry, I think I forgot Q here. Here you have to introduce Q here. Okay, okay, this is already a Q. So you may use this equation for getting the final equation. Okay, so ultimately what is our objective? I have this is my equilibrium equation. One single equation, because I have used all three into one. Other two moment equation I have replaced in the Q equation. I have used all three into one. So one single equilibrium equation I am make it. And my purpose of analysis, I need to analyze this using one single equation. So you replace moment in terms of displacement and then simplifying it, you get fourth order differential equation of the plate analysis. So we have finally arrived at, you know, the quantities of the plate equation. Fourth order partial differential equation. Of course, it has this rigidity. It is very similar to, this is called as flexural rigidity. It has a loading. The single biharmonic equation, fourth order, in terms of single displacement of the plate. Single displacement of the plate, that is in vertical direction, because it's the bending. This is my plate, it bends, and this W is the deflection of the plate. Now, how to solve this fourth order differential equation? That is the plate analysis. So these were the theoretical development, how you arrive at one single fourth order differential equation in terms of W, that is displacement of the plate. It has the loading, rigidity, everything. And then I may skip this because for beams it is easy to understand. I think I may suggest you some books where you may reference, where you may also think about you know, the similar development that has happened with the Eylor-Bernoulli beam theory also. And I have skipped this slide, one or two slides. These are the equilibrium equation for the beam, analogy to Euler-Bernoulli beam theory. There also you take the equilibrium. It reduces your, it has a moment equation. Equilibrium equation is like dm by dx, but you may see and then dv by dx is equal to minus q. But in case of plate, we have seen that these are our differential equilibrium equation. There are three equilibrium equation we are getting it. And then once we are able to simplify, then we are able to get the final biharmonic equation. Here, in case of beam also, you get single differential equation, that is in terms of V, that is m over ei del square V by, it's the second order differential equation. del square V by dx square is equal to, this is beam bending, but for plate we have this fourth order in terms of W. Now how to solve this equation? We I think consider, okay, now boundary condition very quickly I will go through it because we have time limits. So when age of the plate is fixed, it is easy to understand that fixed we have zero displacement, that is W is zero, and the slope is zero for the fixed. So it basically it says that if this portion is fixed, the tangent is actually tangent of this is meeting the middle surface. Okay, and then I can say del W by del X. So if plate wants to deflect and it has a slope, the slope starts after some distance away. So this is a kind of deflection you can see here. The tangent plane of this plate is meeting basically with the original surface. So tangent basically meeting with the original, that means slope is zero. Okay, so del W by del X is zero. So these are the boundary conditions for the fixed support. And then we have free edge. Now in free edge we have basically three boundary conditions that everyone knows that on free edge we have zero shear and zero moments. But here we have two moments, twisting moment as well as a moment in x direction. So with this x equal to a, this edge is free. I have mx, my, mxy, and qx. So there is a problem here because there are three conditions, and I should prescribe only two conditions. Three are too many. So these conditions were prescribed by the person named Poisson. But there is a contradictory thing because you have fourth order equation. You have certain conditions. You can't have five conditions. You need to have only four conditions. But in this case, because other edge also you have some conditions. So altogether you need to have restrict the conditions mathematically to have our problem well closed. Okay, then these three I want to convert into two. And how do I convert? It was decided that Kirchhoff proved the three boundary conditions are too many and only two conditions are sufficient for complete determination of the deflection satisfying governing differential equation. So the requirement of Poisson dealing with the, so what they say, Kirchhoff is saying that you may replace twisting and shear force together. And how we can do that? Twisting moment is replaced with the couple, same magnitude but in the form of force. Just like here a force couple you are doing it, like in steering wheel, you know the force couple how it acts. So what to reduce the mxy and combine that qx and mxy, the shear force on that surface, what they have decided is they will replace with the couple. And in the process, entire process, I think I will go quickly because we need to see one example as well. So physical significance of this reduction of the number of boundary condition on the free support. Okay, not at the other support. That other support we already have the straightforward boundary condition. That's a slope in the x direction. Deflection should be zero for the fixed end. But for the free end only, this problem arises of multiple boundary conditions. We need to make from 3 to 2, and then what I can do is I need to replace mxy with the qx. I replace the force, which force couple instead of moment of the same magnitude. So magnitude of the moment, if I know, I can replace that in the form of couple. So numerical magnitude will be the same. Okay, so whether you are replacing it with the couple of the forces or you are replacing with the moment of the same magnitude is going to be the same, and that's the logic behind this. So this will not make any difference, much difference in the bending moments, but only at the corners there will be some change. So you will be, when I combine, I use this equilibrium of the forces, I replace qx, I combine both, so I am able to combine my total force boundary condition, shear force which is 0. I have added this couple, twisting couple, so it becomes 1 and then bx equal to 0. So I finally I have two conditions. Okay, one comprises of this and second comprises of that bending moment 0. So finally we have two conditions. I replace and simplify some formulas, but then I have finally at the free edge I have this condition and this condition. and I replace it. Now, moving further, if you want to derive this and know more about it, I think I will give you reference where you can actually, get insight into this type of things. Now, I told you because of this twisting moment, there will be one moment left at the end, that is one vertical force and horizontal, upward and downward force at the corner. And this will actually give you the additional reaction at the corners. And these phenomena you have observed when you are designing the two-way slab also. There you are providing the additional torsional reinforcement at the corners to replace, because it's because of these twisting moments, we are replacing it with the shear force. There is a strong shear force, strong reaction that will act. And from design point of view, I need to provide the extra encouragement. Encourage has to be there at the corners of the slab, and this phenomena you have observed in the plate design also. So this R is being replaced. The magnitude of that reaction will be double of that, because you are traveling from left to right and then front to behind, and then you get 2 times this kind of forces. So MYX, MXY, and then you double it. So this is a reaction, and this is you may observe this phenomena in design of the slab by providing the corner vertical reaction in slab, torsional reinforcement. Okay, this is about simply supported boundary condition. So that's the moment is 0 and the deflection is 0. So moment is 0, that is del W by del X, del square W by del X, moment equation. Moment equation also comprises of del square W by del Y square. But you can make it 0 because there is no point in talking about this edge where del W by del square W by del Y square is. Basically it does not require. So finally our simplification of the boundary condition that the simply supported reduces into del square W by del X square is equal to 0. So deflection is 0. This is certain things kind of similar to our beam analysis also. Now this is how to solve this problem. So you can take the long rectangular plate. You may simplify it, plate in the like one-way slab. All of you have analyzed a one-way slab, design one-way slab, where the bending happens in the cylindrical shape. And then finally you end up analyzing only the bending in this direction, right? That the primary bending in this direction. So this direction, the cylindrical shape, the longer direction, there won't be much I would say the effect. So what we do is we can simplify our differential equation. So this is one example of how we can use our biharmonic equation. We can simplify it in the form of y direction because it is bending like this. Then in the y direction, the bending is not, we may consider this as a mx and my. So our plate equation becomes with respect to y, the bending, because the loading varies. Sorry, this is your y direction. Here it is showing the other way around. So this is your y direction and this is x direction. So in the y direction, you get the differential equation. I have removed the remaining quantities, only the y, and this you can simplify it. You can simply now assume any deflection function. That is a solution strategy, and you may replace and find out the by introducing the boundary condition the usual way when you are solving the rotation problem, deflection problem in case of beam also. The fourth order, you basically you have to integrate this 4 times and then you get W, and then you find out the constant from the boundary conditions. This is typical way a boundary value problem is solved, and you may get your deflection very easily. So you may, because you are integrating 4 times, I am assuming the sinusoidal load here. So the loading function is this. This is hypothetical way of imagining, the applying sinusoidal load. You may apply uniform load also, and then you can analyze a plate. So this is how the plates are analyzed. Now another problem, that is a rectangular plate. I will quickly go through it. So you may see here the sinusoidal loading distribution again, and then you may want to use the fourth order differential equation with the boundary conditions. These are the boundary conditions, the simply supported plate at all edges. So you get the moment 0, deflection 0 at both the edges, x equal to a and 0, y is equal to a and 0 and b. And then this is our fourth order differential equation. You can simply replace the q term, the loading term, and basically you can assume the solution which satisfied the boundary condition. So this is the deflection solution with some constant. I may assume that this deflection surface will be like this with some constant. So this constant has to be determined from the boundary conditions. So you replace this, provided this solution satisfies the boundary condition also. So if you see, if you differentiate, and you may check, you may want to check by substituting x and y 0, you will be able to see that the boundary condition is satisfied, right? So I can use a displacement function, just you can replace it in the fourth order differential equation, and finally you get this. And I can find out the constant, and that constant I can, once I am able to find the constant, I can replace it, the constant, into the original displacement assumed. This is the assumed displacement function. I can replace it, and I can find out deflection within the plate, simply supported plate at all the edges. What is a maximum deflection? That also you can find out. You can take A is equal to A by 2, B is equal to B by 2, the central deflection, if it is a uniform loading. This is sinusoidal loading, but you may vary your x and y, and then you can find out this is a general deflection formula. You may use it for finding the deflection at any point in the body. Okay, now there are other methods of solution of the plate problems. So this is analytical method, which if you want to know, elaborate in detail, you may use. I will refer you some reference, but because of the time, I will quickly go through these problems. And then these are the methods. Finite element methods can be used. It's a completely different subject. Finite difference method can be used. Some analytical methods, semi-analytical methods, numerical methods are used. Okay. So these whatever methods here, by solving this differential equation, partial differential equation, is analytical version, but you may find references on finite element methods of the plate, finite differences, and the other numerical analytical methods also. And then I think for finite element modeling, you have to keep in mind whatever shape function. I think Miss Monica saw day before yesterday. She was talking about finite elements. You may see here the Kirchhoff plate element, where degrees of freedom are the displacement W, rotations theta x theta y, which your kinematic degrees of indeterminacy, that is 3 here, 3 here, and 3 here, and total 9 degrees of indeterminacy you can choose. So whenever you model plate element in the commercial software also, if it is bending, you have to choose this plate element only, that it has a rotation, 2 rotations, and a deflection. And then this kind of the software result you may see from the finite element method. This is a polynomial function of the 9, because 9 displacement degrees, and then you may find out, you may formulate the coefficients, you may find the shape functions, you may derive the shape functions. It is just like, this is your displacement function, this is your shape function. You may find out these coefficient, this is your polynomial, the degrees. And then usual way, you can just, now we have seen the strain relation, del W by del X, del W by del Y. You may find out the rotations, and you get your K matrix from this. So once you get your B matrix, that is in finite element terminology, this is about FEM formulation. I know it is a different subject, but then this is a brief introduction about how you can formulate the finite element plate analysis. That once you are able to relate the epsilon, epsilon with the nodal displacement degrees of indeterminacy, and if you are able to find B matrix, which is a derivative of the shape function, this is your discretization, that is sigma shape function, that is H, and di, that is your nodal degrees of indeterminacy, I going from 1 to n. This is your displacement function. So this is FEM replacement of the entire formulation. Epsilon is replaced with that discretized domain. And you may want to, find the B matrix and then stiffness matrix. And FEM is all about that. And this is about Middling plate theory that is applied for the thick plate theory, where along with bending rotation, you have the shear angle rotation also, because the neutral axis, does not remain at the 90 degree. It is greater than 90, lesser than 90 or greater than 90. That 90 degree normal and the neutral axis 90 degree does not remain here after deformation. And that is a Middling plate theory, that is a thick plate theory. And this is a scope of research where you may apply thick plate theory, composite and sandwich plates, different material plates, different materials, finite element modeling, geometrically material linear and non-linear analysis, various geometrical shapes, multi-span plates on various supports, the scope of research. And these are 3 references. So Timoshenko, the book, this is a classical subject. The book is written in 1959, but you can give a lot of modern treatment to the subject. And Timoshenko is one of the pioneers. He's considered as a father of modern engineering mechanics. He has also written books on mechanics of material, strength of material, and nicely described fundamentals of the plate theory. Then we have Ugral, stresses in beams, plates and shells. We have Gere, mechanics of material. So these are the reference. So thank you very much for listening to me. And perhaps because of the nature of the subject, I have to introduce some equations and mathematics also. So if you have any questions, any doubt, you can contact me. You can ask me now. And this is my phone number. In future also, if you want to ask, you may ask. So thank you very much.